Minash-Shaytanir-Rajeem, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to all this morning. I'm your host Hajra Satti and joining me is my wonderful co-host who happens to be Fahim Bangesh. Assalamu alaikum Fahim, and how are you doing today?
Walaikum assalam. Very well, thank you very much, and good to be here after a very long time.
Thank you so much for gracing us, and today happens to be 7th of May and it's a very important day because on PTV World we always strive and aim to tell the untold stories, especially stories about the cultural diversity, about the diplomacy, and we have been constantly striving to bring forward all of those people, all of those representatives who would talk about the diversity and the bilateral ties between Pakistan and the different countries that we enjoy.
And Hajra, since PTV World is the only English channel of Pakistan, we tend to project the narrative of the state, what the state wants to say, and also what the other countries want to tell the entire world, the entire nation of Pakistan. And we happen to be the representatives of that. We happen to be the platform through which the other countries can come here and talk about their untold stories, like you very beautifully said.
Right, and I think today when one of the countries that we want to have the conversation and develop the conversation about has a very amazing sort of the landscapes, and it has developed itself, and it's a very successful model of how you integrate the development, how you integrate the modernization, and you can stand from the ashes because it was engulfed in an extremely brutal war.
Hajra, before we start off,
Sure.
What is your opinion on the war? I mean, being an educated person, being a host, what do you think? How would you define it, and how would you talk about the advantages should they be held? Because ever since the inception of humankind, there have been wars.
Right, so there's a very famous statement, especially in the international relations, that if you want to make peace, so you need to be ready for the war, right? So obviously, no person in the sane mind would want to prepare for the war because it costs a lot. But in order to maintain the peace, you have to make the war. But today we are going to discuss a country and the representative of the country, which we have the honor of conducting him before that, and he happens to be also represent the country of the Vietnam. So today happens to be 7th of May, and this is the Victory Day of Vietnam, and we would like to explore what exactly does that mean. And because Pakistan and Vietnam developed diplomatic ties back in 1972 in the November, and according to Ministry of Finance, Pakistan is exporting goods worth $136 million, and these are the goods, these are the trade and bilateral ties which are constantly happening. But in order to further develop our conversation on the Victory Day, which happens to be also the 70th.
And also, Hajra, I'm sure the viewers can also see, and we can also see the pictures that are being shared on the screens of PTV World. These are pictures from those days, the black and white days, the days of the Vietnam War. Of course, we know how oppressed the people of Vietnam were, how the difficult times that they had to go through, the war that they had to go through. And definitely we're going to talk about that. And I think I must introduce our first guest without any further ado. We have Honorable Ambassador of Vietnam to Pakistan, His Excellency Nguyen Tien Phong. Sir, welcome to PTV World and a very good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. It's a pleasure having you here.
Right, and we're also very glad that we have been joined by another ambassador who is going to talk at length about Pakistan and Vietnamese relationship. We're very glad that we have been once again joined by Ambassador Salahuddin Chaudhary Sahab. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum assalam, Hajra and Fahim, and thank you for having me with you.
A pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure. Now, Excellency, when we talk about this Victory Day, we talk about the cessation of hostilities. We talk about that particular day, which happens to be very, very important for the people of Vietnam, obviously, because that city was one city which was a hub of bloodshed, but it yielded great results.
Exactly.
Could you talk about something about the history of that particular day?
Thank you. It's my great honor to be here to talk about the Vietnam, talk about the culture, diplomacy, talk about the war and the Victory Day of Vietnam. Today, the 7th of May, in Vietnam, just 1 hour ago, the party, state, government, and also the people of the whole nation, we happily celebrated the 70th anniversary of the Dien Bien Phu victory. So I'll talk about that, share with you a little bit later on. But during your conversation, I heard that it was a question about the war. What is the war? Definition of the war.
Yeah.
And of course, it's interlinked with the victory. So the war is, we have to go to the war if it's inevitable, if it's unavoidable.
True.
Because in this situation, when a nation, when a people, they lost their core interests or maybe the right of that countries. What are they? They are integrity. They are independence. They are sovereignty.
True.
They are the people were forced to be slave. So if that kind of aspect or categories lost, we have to go. We had to go to the war. That's why we have the victory. So the war and the victory concept or definition interlinked, intertwined together. So back to the victory day of Dien Bien Phu 70 years ago, after the campaign of 56 days and nights, 56 days and nights, not only days, and the soldier of Vietnam, they dig the trench under the ground. We have to bring all the facility, the weapons and the food, try to fight for our own rights. And after 56 days, we got a victory. So you see that Dien Bien Phu is a city or province, northern part of Vietnam. Yeah, I think that 100 kilometers from Hanoi. But the French colonists at that time, why they put Dien Bien Phu, which is like the fortress of the French colonialism, because it's very difficult to get there, mountainous area, difficult terrain to get there. And they put that with very, very, at that time, modernized weapon. We have nothing. We have some rifle, and you have to use the rickshaw, bike to move our own weapon and also the food. But the victory, the meanings and significance, we can say two aspects. National. It's the first time the colonialism has been smacked down in one country after being invaded. And then it's national symbol of victory when we get the integrity. We have sovereignty, we have our own people right. So at the global level, it's a symbol of the movement for decolonization in the 5 continents. So if you search Google, Wikipedia, Dien Bien Phu victory resounded the 5 continents and also shocked the world at that time on the 7th of May 1954. So it's encouraged the colonized, the oppressed
So,
nation and
Excellency,
people
not
to
just
stand up for
of
their
that-
own struggle.
Because not just of that time, it still shocks the world till today that people who did not have enough weapons, modern weapons, can defeat, has the ability to defeat a colonizer who happens to be so much more advanced, who happens to hold so many fortresses on the mountains and take targets very easily.
And I think
So-
we in the subcontinent can also relate with
Relate
that
to that,
because
exactly.
we were also a colonized nation,
Yeah.
right? And and when Mr. Ambassador was talking about his nation's experience about the colonizations and the sufferings that they went under through very intense period, and obviously when we are talking about the Geneva Accords of 1954, so Mr. Ambassador Salahuddin Saab, can you relate your experience because you've the honor of serving Pakistan representative in the Vietnam.
Yes.
So how was his experience there, and do you feel that these two nations, they're also binded by their shared history of colonization, decolonization, and the resistance movement that took place?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, when a nation fights an enemy, or when a nation tries to survive in the presence of invaders, when a nation wants to go forward against any kind of colonization or imperialism, the nation has to make tremendous sacrifices.
True
Just
that.
the way we in Pakistan, for our, independence movement, made tremendous sacrifices in one way or the other. Of course, there was no bloody war as such, like in Vietnam. But Vietnamese people, look at they were impoverished nation society. It was a very, initial stage. It was just a developing country, and And despite the paucity, the lack of wealth, lack of, say, weaponry, etc., they had the courage and they had the sagacity to think in those terms and make the preparation and fight it out. And just like the Ambassador Nguyen has told you, that it was the question of sovereignty is a question of occupation by the foreigners, which are not acceptable.
Exactly.
And it's the question of integrity, the integrated nation of their country. If they want to survive, they have to fight. Of course, Hajra, you mentioned earlier
Right.
that whenever you try to go for peace, you have to prepare for yourself for war. But I would slightly modify that.
Sure.
I would say to achieve peace, you have to be ready for any, the worst. I will not call it war. It can be any other thing, any other issue.
Right.
So the Vietnamese people were not initially ready. They were taken by surprise, but they made preparations and carried on with the courage, spirituality, and led by very famous spirituality scholar and a great man of peace, and Ho Chi Minh, Uncle Ho. Uncle Ho led the nation, and my God, he imbibed, the trust, imbibed the going forward spirit, and then the nation went together, and they regained the sovereignty and regained everything. Geneva Accord was the beginning of that process. That's what they say. It was the process of the beginning with the multinational countries. They all came together and decided that Vietnam must not suffer any longer. We must find ways to seize the hostilities, stop the war, etc. Although it carried on for a while later as well. But of course, the beginning was made. That's why it's important. 1954 and Dien Bien Phu, that was the accord signed, and that's the beginning.
Right, and as both of these ambassadors were talking for him, so I think one example that popped up in my mind when we talk about the Vietnam is the example of the phoenix, that how phoenix rises from the ashes, right? And
Yeah.
we've seen that how Vietnam was suffering the colonization of the two greater powers, and how they were able to defeat a very modernized army armed with the latest equipment, but yet again, like Mr. Ambassador said, His Excellency Mr. Fong, that a person cannot suffer the humiliation and person cannot suffer the dent in his dignity or the self-respect, and that is why the nation rises. And I think let's take a visual representation, a short documentation of how Vietnam came across as a great nation and what it has to offer as a big nation. So let's have a look then.
On July 21, 1954, after 75 days of tense and complex negotiations, the Geneva Accords were signed, marking the first major international conference involving all 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. Under the Accords, all foreign troops and weapons were required to withdraw from Vietnam. North Vietnam, from the 17th parallel northwards, was completely liberated, creating conditions for peaceful development and serving as a strategic base for the ongoing resistance aimed at national unification.
The Geneva Accords were an indispensable first step, serving as a peace treaty aimed at restoring peace in a global context where peace was necessary and major powers, fearful of war, also sought peace.
The signing of the Geneva Accords marked not only a historic milestone for our nation but also carried significant global implications. The collective victory of Indo-Chinese countries and peace advocates worldwide, coupled with the Dien Bien Phu victory, inspired oppressed nations to fight for liberation, heralding the decline of global colonialism.
The Geneva Accords were the first multilateral international treaty that Vietnam participated in negotiating, signing, and implementing. It not only affirmed its independent and sovereign status in the international arena, but also significantly advanced its revolutionary diplomacy, yielding valuable lessons and shaping many distinguished diplomats in the era of Ho Chi Minh.
During the negotiation, signing, and implementation of the Geneva Accords, Vietnam steadfastly upheld the principles of peace, national independence, and territorial integrity, while also applying flexible and strategic responses to the international and regional contexts. This experience highlights the importance of deep situational analysis and strategic adaptability, knowing when to advance or retreat, which remains crucial in today's global environment.
70 years after signing the Geneva Accords, Vietnam is dynamically growing and deeply integrated internationally, enjoying significant global stature. The lessons from the Accords negotiation, signing, and implementation are still relevant today, particularly in shaping a modern, comprehensive diplomatic corps reflective of Vietnam's unique bamboo identity.
Welcome back, viewers, and I think this documentary showed us a lot of inspiration. We can draw a lot of inspiration from a country like Vietnam, because definitely, like you mentioned, Hajra, this is equivalent to a phoenix which rises from the ashes. And once a country which was isolated, once a country which was poor, now it's somewhere else. Now, Sir, Excellency, now if we talk about the development of Vietnam as a country, how would you say this actually happened? Because a country needs to have people who are all on the same page. The whole nation, they have to be on the same page. They have to have the same thinking. They have to have that spirit of sacrifice. How did that happen over these 7 decades? Because now it's here. Then it was here.
Yeah. Thank you. Very, very interesting question. Because with the settled line of the victory of Dien Bien Phu, we can see that before we talk about the Dien Bien Phu victory, and every nation, every people, we can shake hand for friendship, for brotherly relation. But when we had to go to the war, and then we got a loser, we got a winner. But you see that at the documentary film, you see that we won, but without killing. We arrested 16,000 French military men, but no one killed.
That's a great legacy.
And then this victory led to the Geneva Accord. So the Geneva Accord does mean is a final, the ending of the war, not by killing. We have the victory on the battlefield, and then they have to sit on the table, and then it's the ending of the war. So from this kind of thinking philosophy, Vietnamese people never want to be enemy with any nation.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So with that, after 7 decades, we still try to get relation back to normal. And just want to share with you that yesterday, the defense minister of France invited to be in Vietnam. He got there and he met with our prime minister. And today, he went to battlefield 70 years ago to celebrate together with us the victory. That means we want to set aside the past. We want to look forward to the future by cooperation. And that's why the nation recorded the sustainable development, because no enemy forever. You can be
wonderful.
The enemy in the past when you have the war, but after that, you can be brother, sister, who have win-win. Why not? Because you cannot live alone. In Vietnamese saying, we have some saying that no fighting, no brother.
And I must say that's very progressive thinking if we talk about 70 years back. Because now we say, Hajra, and I'm sure Ambassador Saab, you also would agree with that in today's world, no country can live alone. No country can stay isolated for long. It has to be on a global level, everything. We have to communicate, we have to trade, everything has to be done on a global level.
Yeah.
And that's some really progressive thinking.
That's very true, and I think after a very long and arduous resistance movement against the 2 great colonial powers, it was not just the one power, so it was the French and there were also the American occupation. they were able to not just decolonize their land, but like Mr. Ambassador mentioned, that without any bloodshed, they captured French soldiers and there was no bloodshed. And I think that's a greatest legacy to carry, considering the fact that colonization period was marked with so much bloodshed, so much suffering. We from our own experiences can relate to that. So Mr. Ambassador Salahuddin Saab, you have been posted there, you have observed it in a great detail. So what is some of the spirit that you observe? Because this was a nation that was not very modernized, it was a small nation, yet it was able to defeat two big nations. So what went that through, and how would you describe the spirit, and how does their founder, Uncle Ho, manifest in their entire, the teachings or the learnings of that nation?
You know, Hajra, for any human being, the beauty of that human being lies within the human being,
True.
right?
Not outside.
And if that beauty is there and you can sustain it, you can have the beauty outside as well. Like, you know, at one time, King Charles, when he was a prince, he said, you know, peace is within you, so that you can achieve peace without as well. So that's the basic thing. That's the dignity of a human being. And the Vietnamese people had that, have it now, and continue to have it. There's extraordinary beauty in the entire area of East Asia. The people are so good. The people are so honest. The people are so soft-hearted. Like just now, Ambassador was saying, that we do not want to keep on fighting.
True.
We don't want to bring back our friendship. You know, just like, you know, even the South African famous leader, Nelson Mandela said,
Yes.
no malice to anybody.
True.
Let's have peace back,
That's
even with the whites. No problem. The same way now, People's Republic of China, they also declared a policy: the malice to nobody, friendship to all. That is the basis. And Vietnam, I was there. I'll just give you one story.
Yeah.
When I was there first, I met the foreign minister, and after having met him, we were discussing at that time the creation of SAARC.
Okay.
And Vietnam expressed their desire
Right.
to join the SAARC at that time. And whatever happened later is, of course, another matter. But when I left the place, I was just watching the buildings. I was trying to, enjoy the beauty and the architecture. And the protocol officer, suddenly I saw somebody, he was with me. I saw somebody, he come from inside coming out, went to the corner, took out a bike, sat on the bike, and went away. I just was wondering, didn't I see him somewhere? I couldn't make out. The protocol officer told, yes sir, that's the foreign minister.
Oh, how lovely.
Can you
How
believe that?
lovely.
I mean, look at this, the dignity, the simplicity of life.
Right.
And of course, there was a law, there was a rule. An official business will conduct only in the office areas. But as soon as when you come to the office, you will use your own bike,
Right.
and when you go back, you'll use your own bike. And when I landed, I saw the whole street full of bicycles, pedal bicycles. It was so beautiful for me, the simplicity. But that time and now, there's a big difference. You will see there's so much of improvement, so much of development, so many things happened. And Vietnam is one of the leading countries that comes to the marine wealth.
Oh,
At that, the foreign minister had told me, why don't you come and join us with your fishing trawlers? You are also very famous in Balochistan areas, Makran areas. You bring in there, we'll give you full in areas to do the fishing. You see all that time. Of course, it followed up later. It didn't happen immediately. But I'm trying to tell you, the simplicity of life, the dignity of life, dignity of oneself, there lies your beauty. And I tell you, in the Chinese, they all struggled. Cambodia, Laos, and of course Vietnam was in the leading phase. But the people are so wonderful. Sometimes I feel, I wish we could be the same. But this is the characteristic of East Asian people, and headed by the Vietnamese, my friend, Ambassador Nguyen, Tien Phong.
Just one
Sure,
minute
sure.
to subordinate the idea from Excellency Salahuddin that cultural diplomacy
Right.
is extension of our intrinsic value.
Yeah.
It's crystallized in our own, soul and heart, 1,000 years. So every war, we won every war. But after that, we were the first, and now, same. We are the first to give our hand for shaking.
That's
Always.
It's wonderful,
Just
really.
pave the way for the cooperation, for the peace. That's it.
Now, also, Excellency, if we talk about the war again, just one question that comes to the mind. it happened in phases, right? The first phase, we saw the cessation of hostilities, and then we had the North and the South. Now the unification of the North and the South, that must have been quite an arduous and difficult task. How did that happen? Because again, if we talk about our own country, Hajra, when we talk about the differences, it's very difficult to get people on one page that this is where we have to go, this is the target, and we have to reach here in so and so time. But we saw that happening in Vietnam. We saw the people unifying, we saw the cessation of the border between the North and South. Could you highlight some of that for us?
3 points I should focus on in answering your question. First, after 1954 and after the Geneva Accord or Agreement, right after signing, you saw the picture of signing
Yeah.
the agreement. Our party, Communist Party, Uncle Ho, and Politburo, we prepare for the war with America 21 years. We were ready. We were ready because we fully understand that after that Geneva Agreement, the foreigner will get into again. And what happened? So talking about the South and the North, of course we have center Vietnam. Look at the geographical aspect of Vietnam. You see our long S shape, the South China Sea.
Yes.
So we have land border with Laos, Cambodia, China, and on the sea to the east we have the sea border with Thailand, even Indonesia and Malaysia. So like Vietnam's, like geographically like a dam for the other country. So it's very sensitive. I believe that Pakistan and Vietnam, this kind of the aspect, we have some similarities.
Strategic location, yes.
So that's why we had to experience many wars, 4,000 years, many wars. And why we have 54 ethnic races in Vietnam and same number of languages. But why? Because patriotism. All the Vietnamese people, we think we are Vietnamese. Yeah, in the past 1,000 years under the control of China, but we keep our own language, we keep our own characteristic. So all the people in Vietnam, even overseas Vietnamese, they want to be back home, even if they want to be buried after dying in Vietnam. So we have the linkages. This Vietnamese, Vietnam nation, the countries, this one as one.
We definitely would talk more about patriotism.
Yeah,
You raised a very relevant and beautiful point here. But now we have to take a short break, viewers. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more to learn from Vietnamese ambassador here, Ansalaudin Saab. We'll be right back. Stay tuned to PTV World.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, we were having a wonderful conversation between Vietnam and Pakistan and what does our diplomatic relation holds, and we were also sort of exploring the past experiences that we can learn as a nation from the Vietnamese nation. But Fahim, my team and I, we had the honor of being hosted by the Vietnamese ambassador, and we had also the honor of drinking the lotus tea, and that was an amazing tea, and I was very glad to know that being a South Asian, being a Pakistani, tea is not just a beverage for us, it's a tool for the social bonding, right? So sham ki chai, or the evening teas where all of the people gather together of the family members and they discuss the things. And I'm very glad that Vietnam has also the same culture where they're also bonding over the tea. So in order to have the visual representation of the phoenix that I label as the Vietnam, so what does it hold as a potential? We have another visual representation and video to watch out, and please take a look because we are going to discuss afterwards.
9 years of prolonged resistance against French colonialism, but also significantly boosted the morale of oppressed nations worldwide, inspiring them to fight for independence. It led to the signing of the Geneva Accords, ending the war and restoring peace in Indochina. The Dien Bien Phu victory remains an undying epic of heroism in the era of Ho Chi Minh, a luminous, golden milestone in the annals of Vietnamese history.
the Dien Bien Phu victory is something that we would like to develop a further conversation on, because history offers so many lessons to learn from. And like Fahim said, and we were discussing it earlier on, that in order to keep the peace, we have to maintain and we have to prepare for the war. So Ambassador Salahuddin Saab, since you were also very much interested in the discussion, we've seen that there are so many lessons that can be learned from that victory. And one of the lessons, I think history has again and again showed us that it's not just the modern weaponry or the large size of the army that matters in the war. It's much more than that, and it's the faith, the spirit that dominates that, right? So sir, as an ambassador who has served in Vietnam, you have closely observed the nation. What are some of the lessons that we as Pakistani can learn?
Okay, I will tell you,
Sure.
we all accept, the whole world accepted that Americans were the superpower.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
And at that time, particularly when the Vietnam War was going on, following of course, the French colonization of that country, after the Geneva Accords, multilateral level, things were moving in the right direction, but came in the superpower. They thought they would try and help the French out. But lo and behold, the strength, the mental strength of the Vietnamese as a people was so strong, a superpower could not sustain that to face that. And in the end, what happened, you all know history. I'll just tell you one incident, or rather what happened exactly. After the northern part of Vietnam got liberated from the French colonization, came the Americans, and so the war is still going on. But the Vietnamese had as I said, the weapon of the heart, and they made it. People would remember in 1975, 26th of April at about 5 o'clock, as a last resort to say, okay, we must do or die. So the armed forces of Vietnam, they launched an attack with only 5 wings against Saigon to the southern part. And of course, in the face of that strength, they fell, including the American soldiers and others. They had to yield to their strength. And on the 28th, the Vietnamese war force, they walked into the headquarters, like the GHQ, our GHQ, the headquarters of the American, infantry and others, and they took it over. And just about that time, the southern parts, president, he was watching, and he just became president 2 days back, okay? And he was watching what was happening, and he knew the northern side of Vietnam will take over for sure. So in his heart, he was ready. So after 2 days of that, he surrendered the weaponry, and the armed forces surrendered to the North Vietnamese, army. And of course, and the army went to their Saigon main, the Independence Palace,
Yes.
and they raised the flag of Vietnam. That was it. Can you believe that? A superpower, just standing alone and could do nothing.
It gives one goosebumps just listening
yeah,
to
that's
that.
it.
Yes.
So that is the spirit, the strength of the spirit, which took them forward and got rid of the colonial powers, B, a superpower,
True that.
the imperial power.
Now, Excellency, like we were just talking, you said your grandfather had also been a part of that
Yes,
war,
campaigned,
the
yeah.
campaign.
And my father also the campaign in 1975.
Oh, lovely.
He's in the group who arrested the then President Deng Văn Minh, like Excellency said.
He's in the picture.
My father.
I
in the
see.
video.
Wonderful. So how does that make you feel as a diplomat, as the son and a grandson of people who are directly involved in such historic occasions?
So traditionally or normally I should follow the military career, but you see that in Vietnam, whatever you do, what sector you are working for, the most important thing that you are Vietnamese, you think inside that you are Vietnamese, you have patriotism, you have the heart for the countries, and if the countries, the whole nation integrated as one, so you can do that. So from the military family, actually I am from the military family.
I see.
And now I am doing in the diplomacy, but I think it's no different in the target to protect the countries. Try to support, try to contribute for the development of countries, in country building and also for the development. So whatever battlefield you are in, just for the nation, that's it.
That's wonderful. But Mr. Ambassador, so we've seen that, I mean, there are lots, because we are South Asian countries, right? And there are some common themes, common threads that bind us together. And I would like to ask this question from both of you. And I think first, Mr. Fong, I would like to answer. So what are some of the common themes, of the common cultural themes that you found which bind us as a nation, as a Vietnamese, as a Pakistani? Because we had the honor of having the lotus tea, and I think the lotus beverage is something that is very trendy nowadays. You know, lotus ice creams, lotus cakes, and a lot of that. So do you feel that the tea is something, so beverage, you know, that creates a social bonding? And what are some of the other trends that you notice which bind us together?
Because today is a very special day of Vietnam. So from the Dien Bien Phu victory, we can see something. We can convey some kind of message.
Sure,
and
sure.
from that, we can see the commonality
Right.
and similarity between Vietnam and Pakistan.
Yes.
So 1954, after our victory, we have the Geneva Agreement signed. So the internal solidarity, internal forces, internal strength is decisive. But we need the strength of the global time, international time. That means we need cooperation from outside. We need brother. Remember that back to 1954, the participant of the Geneva negotiation,
Yes.
including America, China, Soviet Union. So we have the support, because if you alone going to the table, so not easy to get that agreement signed, because it's organized, held in Geneva,
Right.
in international forum, at the UN framework. So as a individual countries, even you won after the war, we have to follow, we have to have the international funds, international norms and law. So up to now, same for the economic development. We cannot go alone. If we go alone, we can go far, but we go together, it's better, much better. So from that kind of thing 70 years ago, and now still very valid for the government party and people of Vietnam, that with the spirit of the Dien Bien Phu and Geneva Agreement, we have to have the cooperation. We have our own incentive and strengths, but very, very necessary that we need our friends. We need the cooperation to sustainably develop your countries. So
Right.
Pakistan and Vietnam, at that point, we share the commonality. Pakistan, very important nation in terms of the United Nations, geographically, right, economically, very important position. And you have many, many good friends, including Vietnam.
Definitely.
So we cannot just depend on ourselves for development. We have to have the friends. So Vietnam the same. I think that Pakistan and Vietnam, we share this point very, very much on the road of development.
Correct, Mr. Ambassador. Very, very right. Absolutely. So, as Hajra, I just asked a question
Sure,
for both of us to give us our views. I'll tell you one thing. Diplomacy, we are both diplomats, right?
Right.
And in fact, diplomacy is inherent in every human being, one or the other.
That's true.
Everybody is a diplomat, right? Because what does it mean? You interact.
Yes.
Right.
Dialogue, that's diplomacy. You get information, you give information, negotiate, and bring back understanding towards peace, right? Now, in the context of this, at one time, say about 50 years, 60 years ago, there used to be political diplomacy. Then came a period of public diplomacy. And then finally, do you know who created that? You know, Uncle Ho Chi Minh, the founder of Vietnam, he said cultural diplomacy. He introduced it. It's there, it's history.
I see.
And that culture diplomacy was the way forward. You know, the Uncle Ho, I love to call him Uncle Ho. He's such a favorite man, a wonderful man. And what I studied of him, and he, even in the war, even in the battle, he did not forget the people come first. People come first. What does it mean? You culturally oriented, you have to give them values. They carry the values. So, when he was in jail for about 14 months, he didn't think about politics. He thought about poetry. He wrote a book, a poetical poetry called Prison Diary. In the prison diary, there was no mention of war, no mention of conflict, nothing of the sort. He only dealt with that.
Optimism.
That is cultural. Oh, that is
Yeah.
culture and cultural diplomacy. My God, I really sometimes get carried away. What is that? And then later, when I was with the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission, I saw how the conflicts and disasters are managed. They also are based on culture, interaction, connectivity.
And sir, I'm really astounded and short of words by what the world can offer us as far as inspiration is concerned, as far as making things are concerned, as far as unifying people is concerned. It's really amazing, really. And Excellency, I would like to congratulate you and the whole nation of Vietnam on behalf of us and PTV World and Pakistan in general, because it's a great achievement, a great feat that you people achieved. And may you people go leaps and bounds in the community of nations, in the entire world, globally as well. And may Pakistan also go leaps and bounds. It's our prayer. All our best wishes for Pakistan and Vietnam and the ties between both the countries. Well, with that, we come to the end of the program. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a good learning episode. I'm sure you got to learn a few things from our episode. So thank you very much for joining in, and take care. And thank you.
Sorry to intervene. Can I just say a slogan?
quickly,
Slogan.
please.
Slogan. We say, Pakistan, Vietnam, friendship, Zindabad.
Right,
Pakistan,
right.
Vietnam friendship, Zindabad.
Zindabad.
Right. Pakistan, Vietnam friendship, Zindabad. And with that, we are wrapping up our segment. Thank you so much, both of the ambassadors, for coming here, for enlightening us. And with that, we will bid you farewell. Until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good morning.
Good morning.